Hello and welcome back to the Fit40 Podcast, where we simplify exercise and nutrition for busy people over 40 so they can improve their health and feel amazing. I'm your host, Brian Fitzsimmons, certified personal trainer and nutrition coach for people over 40 since 2015. And today we have an awesome topic. We are going to be talking about basically, you need more protein. And here's how you actually do it. Because there's a lot of people who have heard the words like, yeah, you got to eat more protein, whether it's from a doctor, nutritionist, registered dietitian, or maybe you saw it online and you're like, hearing people saying, oh, you got to eat more protein because it helps you lose weight or it helps you build muscle or whatever it is. And you're like, great. How? Because anytime you see somebody who eats a lot of protein, it's like an absurd amount. You're like, I could never do that. Well, just know that after this podcast episode, you will have plenty of tools, plenty of tips to apply to yourself so that way you can do it with no problem whatsoever going forward. And it'll help you live a healthier, stronger, leaner life. Now, before we jump in, as always, if you haven't already, hit pause real quick, go hit follow or subscribe wherever you're watching or listening so that way you do not miss another episode. We got a lot of awesome topics coming up and a lot of incredible guests lined up. So you definitely don't want to miss that going forward. All right, so let's talk about it. Let's talk about protein. How much? Let's start with that because eating more isn't just going to automatically fix things. You need to know exactly how much to get for your goals. Now, you're going to hear really low numbers, really high numbers, and kind of be confused. So there are really low numbers that you hear about that have you eating somewhere in that ballpark of like 50 to 60 grams-ish per day. And that's based around the RDA, which is the recommended daily allowance. And that's to ensure that you do not go to a point where you're deficient. You don't want to eat too little. But just because you don't eat too little doesn't mean that you are doing the best for yourself, the best for your body, the best for your goals. So a lot of people, especially people who have been consulted with their doctor or nutritionist or dietitian around things like GLP-1 medications, hear that number 100 grams. So 100 grams is a very good starting point for a lot of people. Now, that applies to most people. If you are a little bit on the smaller side, you might not have to actually go that high. So it really comes down to understanding what that number comes from. And that is more of an arbitrary goal where it's like, let's just get over 100 grams. It's easy. It's 100 grams. It's easy to remember. It's easy to have people actually try and execute it, but it doesn't apply across the board perfectly. So if you want to be more accurate, more individualized, then what we really want to aim for is about 1 to 1.1 grams per pound of lean body mass. So lean body mass is pretty much everything in your body that is not fat mass. That includes muscle, it includes bone, organ tissue, fluid, all that good stuff. Now, how do we know what that number is? Well, the tried and true way, the most accurate guess we can get, and I say guess because nothing is 100% perfect, but the closest thing to perfect is a DEXA scan. And that does require you to go to a facility or something like that, like a doctor's office or maybe like a longevity clinic, something like that, and get scanned. And it does come with a touch of radiation, but just so you're aware, not because it's like some super risky thing. It's just you need to know. That's an option. Or in-body. These are at a lot of gyms across the nation. Basically, you stand on an electrical panel where your toes and your heels are touching these electrical pads. And then you grab onto two things that you place your thumbs on, and it sends a very small electrical current through your body. It's called bioelectrical impedance scanner. Basically, what it does is it sends that electrical current through your body and sees how long it takes to return. And based on that rate of return, it can estimate how much lean body mass, how much water, how much fat mass you have in your body. And then there's also things like algorithms like the Navy method. This is the one I use for clients where you get a neck, waist, and hip measurement, and then you plug in your gender and your body weight, and it spits out what an estimated amount of body fat, estimated amount of lean body mass is. And you can just use that number because the goal is to get in the ballpark because you're not going to hit this number perfectly every single day, all the time. It's just, can we get close to this number most days? And if you can, you're going to get the results that you want. All right. That being said, when it comes to protein, it's really hard to eat too much of it. The real thing that you want to be cautious of when you're adding in more protein is not going over on your calories. So it helps to understand how many calories that you want for whatever your goals are, whether you want to lose, gain, or maintain body weight, build muscle, maintain muscle, whatever you want to do. It does help to understand how many calories you need. Because if you just say, oh, I'm going to eat more protein, and you're like struggling with your weight, it is very possible that by adding in more protein, you will gain more weight. But that comes with a caveat, because a lot of times when people do increase their protein intake, their consumption of other things throughout the day that carry a lot of calories starts to reduce. So it actually could help you lose weight, but it's because of the effect on the calories, not just because, oh, I'm eating more protein and this helps me lose weight. That's just not how that works. Okay. The way that we do that, if you want to eat more protein without going completely bonkers on your calories, is using something like the 0 rule. And the 0 rule is you take whatever the grams are in protein and you add a 0 to it, and it should be that many calories or less. So let's say you're looking at a protein bar and it says, there's 20 grams of protein. And you're like, okay, so if I add a 0 to that 20, it's 200. So it should be 200 calories or less. And if it follows that rule, you can confidently say that, hey, this is a pretty lean source of protein. It's not going to carry a ton of calories for all this protein, which is great, because a lot of times protein sources will come with a lot of fat. So like fattier cuts of meat or things like that, or things that are supposedly protein sources, but just are not because they're not lean. Things like peanut butter and any type of fat source that happens to have protein in it, like nuts or anything like that, that would not be considered a lean protein source. So you wouldn't want to get your protein mostly from that. Will it be contributing to the overall daily total? Yes, but you can't rely on that, or the calorie total is going to go way too high. You see that a lot in vegan and vegetarian diets, where they try to eat high protein, but it just comes with a bunch of carbohydrates and fat along with that. So the calories go way too high, which brings me to my next point, which is what kinds of foods are going to get you there? What kind of foods follow this 0 rule? Well, the easy ones are lean meat, chicken, turkey, white fish, eggs, especially egg whites, low-fat cheese, yogurt, especially Greek yogurt, because they filter it to a point where it actually has less fat and more protein. So Greek yogurt is a great option. Now, that being said, I know some people have limitations. Some people prefer to eat, say, vegan or vegetarian. And if you're looking for protein sources that follow that 0 rule, there are a few. Now, it does make it harder, but it doesn't make it impossible. But if you are going to increase your protein intake, you want to really rely on things like seitan, tofu, tempeh, edamame, and protein powders. Ideally, protein powders that have a mix of sources, not just a singular ingredient, because you might not be getting a complete protein source from that. So don't go for just pea protein or just brown rice protein, or just, I'm trying to think off the top of my head what some of these other ones are. But basically, if you're going to get a plant-based or a vegan protein powder, aim for something that has like a bunch of different sources. Like it has brown rice, beans, pumpkin seed, pea protein, soy protein, all that stuff in combination. And then you're getting a bunch of different amino acids that are serving you really, really well. And you want to be careful of the common ones that people talk about when they go or vegan or vegetarian or things like that, like lentils, chickpeas, and quinoa. Yes, they have a lot of protein in them, but they're not quite as lean as the other sources. So you do have to take that into account depending on your goals, because if it does raise those calories too high and you're trying to lose weight, you will not lose weight. Or if you're trying to support muscle mass and you're keeping it within your calories, but your protein doesn't get quite high enough, you won't be able to build as much lean mass because you're not hitting that protein requirement. So you want to make sure that if you're not following the 0 rule, at least track, because there are ways to hit your protein numbers and do this right without following the 0 rule, but it does require that next level of paying attention to exactly what the whole day looks like. So tracking in something like Chronometer or MyFitnessPal, just to make sure that your calories are in check, your protein's in check, and you're good to go. Or if you want an even looser approach, you could just utilize something like ChatGPT, where you say, hey, can you give me a day of eating, a day of recipes where it's vegan or vegetarian, it hits this much protein that you calculated out, and it keeps it at this many calories? And if you can, you're good to go. So You could use that to help you hit your goals. Now, let's talk about how to eat more, because this is the kicker. People know, yes, I need to eat this much, but how do I eat that much? How do I get it to that point? Because I feel like I can't eat that much. Well, let's start with number one, protein-centered meals. Every single meal should start with the thought of, where's the protein? So if you're having salad, pasta, or pizza, it's going to take a little extra effort to be like, where's the protein coming from? So for your salad, are you throwing some chicken on it, or some shrimp, or some steak? Pasta, are you having that with, again, some chicken in there, or anything like that? Pizza, are you going to top it with something, or maybe you're going to have a side salad with chicken in it? I know me and my fiance do that all the time. We'll have like pizza on Fridays, and it won't have any meat on it, but we'll have a side salad with meat in it. So that helps hit the protein goal for that. Next is increasing portion size. I can't even tell you how many people I've talked to that are like, yeah, I eat plenty of protein throughout the day. I just can't get my number up. And then I'm like, so what do you have for breakfast? And they're like, well, I have like an egg and some toast. And I'm like, so you have a singular egg that is 8 grams of protein, and we're trying to get 30-ish per meal. Okay. That can be an issue. If you're so used to eating a specific way, you kind of have to be willing to break these rules in order to hit your goals. If you're just going to say, okay, I've always eaten this way, and I want to try and make it fit in the way I've always eaten, it's probably not going to work. You got to be open to changing things. And portion sizes is the big one, where it's like, okay, instead of 1 egg, try 2. Instead of 2 eggs, try 3. Instead of 3 eggs, maybe do the 3 eggs, but also have like some turkey bacon on the side, or something like that, or some other protein source, like a protein shake. And then for lunch too, because a lot of people will have, say, a sandwich or a wrap, and they'll have whatever it is, chicken, deli meat, whatever in there, but nowhere near enough. So it helps to weigh, or just to read the nutrition label and see what comes per slice or of whatever you're eating, and make sure that there's enough in there. So increasing portion size is probably the most convenient way to do it, because you're already making it. It's just a matter of a little bit more. Now, let's say you can't handle that much in one meal. Just know that if you slowly, gradually start increasing, your body can adapt. Your body can get to a place where it can eat that much. It's just a matter of putting in the time and consistency to let your body change how it needs to. But let's just say you do that, but you still are just like, man, this is like I'm force feeding myself. Well, let's rely on the bodybuilders of the past to teach us a thing or two about forcing in enough nutrients. Because when bodybuilders are trying to get their off-season calories and protein, which is absurdly high compared to the average person, they utilize strategies that we can actually use too. One of them being multiple meals. Now, they used to think, oh, multiple meals stokes your metabolism, it helps with all this. No, it just makes it easier to get your nutritional requirements, because you don't feel so bloated and lethargic and gross after eating massive meals. So if you want to utilize that, you can. Instead of having 2 meals a day, try 3. Instead of 3 meals a day, try 4. And then you break up those protein amounts throughout the day, so it's a lot more manageable. Next is just adding in a shake. Eat exactly what you eat, but just add in a shake. Like, make sure that shake is about 20 to 30 grams. And for most people, that gets them right to that number that they need to get to. It really doesn't have to be much harder than that. Next is don't skimp on breakfast or lunch. Like I just mentioned before, don't have pigeon-sized portions and be surprised when you can't hit the numbers that you need to hit. Don't skip meals in general. A lot of people will only do 1 or 2 meals a day, and then they have this 100-gram goal, and they're like, how the hell am I going to hit that? Well, this is a case for why intermittent fasting, or 1 meal a day, is not ideal for most people, because it makes it harder to do these things. Next is make it convenient. So car bars. I always throw this in because my mom loves doing this, just having a protein bar in the car ready to go whenever. So if she's craving it, or knows that, hey, I'm going to something I don't want to overeat, just have that protein bar and you're good to go. As long as it's a lean protein bar and it's not a glorified candy bar, because you're following the 0 rule. Next is having cheese, like the low-fat cheeses, like those Baby Bell, like the Laughing Cows or whatever. Those are really helpful just to have like at home, to come home to as a little snack. I know I've done that before. It works really well. Pre-cooked meat. So instead of having to cook all your meals all the time from scratch for dinner, maybe even lunch. Pre-cook the protein. So if you have chicken for whatever it is that night, cook all the chicken. Don't just cook the little bit that you need, cook it all for the week or whatever the protein is. Just cook it all out. And that way you don't have to waste time and possibly not do what you're supposed to do because it's inconvenient. Next is protein snacks. So having things instead of your typical snacks where it's like handful of nuts, maybe some candy, maybe some chips, make it protein. Okay, some Greek yogurt or some edamame. This is really good for people that like the salty stuff. It's not crunchy, but it is salty. When you take edamame and like microwave it or whatever, and you just put a bunch of salt on top, and you can like eat it with your teeth and lick the salt on the way into your mouth. Like it's a very good option for people that love the salt. Bars, again, bars are just a simple go-to. You don't want to be too over-reliant on them, especially if they have a ton of sugar alcohols and things like that, because that can mess with your gut a little bit. So just be careful on that. And also, last but not least, my favorite thing is to get creative. Okay, so doing things like having your protein shake act as your creamer in your coffee. I can't even tell you how much of a wizard I look like when I ask clients who are big coffee people. I'm like, so have you ever tried just like putting protein in your coffee? And they're like, what? Oh, that's an option? Like, yes, that's totally an option. If you think that having your protein, like whatever it is, I usually say edge on the side of vanilla flavorings, or they make espresso flavorings or chocolate flavors. Like lean on those and then just dump your coffee into it. You could have an iced coffee on your way into work. That's great. And that'll help a ton. Or cereal people, use your protein shake as cereal milk. I know Ghost Protein literally makes a flavor called cereal milk, so that can be an option. Protein powder and oatmeal. Fair warning, it will change the texture. It doesn't quite taste the same, but you can make it delicious. There are tons of recipes out there that help a lot, and it can be a really good option. Creamies. I know you can literally take your pre-made protein shake. We've done it with, I think my fiance got the Alani. I think that they make pre-made protein drinks, but also OWYN for plant-based. Or if you have your own protein powder at home and you mix it with milk or want to make it from scratch, you can turn that into ice cream with a creamy if you have the means. So that's a really cool one. And that could be like a late night snack. So you don't even have to change your whole day. You just literally, how I said, just add in a protein shake. You can do that, but in creamy form. Really, really good idea. Next is Greek yogurt and smoothies. So when you're making your smoothie, instead of just the milk and protein and fruits or whatever, add in a little bit of Greek yogurt. Not only do you get more protein, but you also get in more prebiotic fiber, which is always a good thing, and probiotics. Oh God. Sorry for anybody watching on YouTube. I just set off the fireworks by giving a double thumbs up on my iPhone camera. And anyway, last but not least, cottage cheese to beef up other cheeses. I saw this from Stealth Health, I think is the account on Instagram. And I'm like, wow, mind blown. Basically making any cheese that you want into like a cheese sauce with cottage cheese. So for example, I was using it for a Mexican dish, and I made my own queso, where it was basically you take the queso cheeses that you would normally use, but you use like maybe a third of them, and then you put it into a blender with cottage cheese, blend it all up, spice it up however you want, and bang, you have queso, and it's a ton of protein and way less calories, way less fat. So that could be a superpower there as well. And last but not least, I will say this: if you truly do care about increasing your protein throughout the day, habits are not formed by trying. Okay, you can't just try to do the thing. Do the damn thing. Get a fridge calculator, get a habit tracker, something to hold yourself accountable so you're actually able to see if you are sticking to the plan. Okay, well wishes and trying and doing your best are all great and everything. Like, it's a good to have good intentions, but at the end of the day, you got to get shit done. You got to actually make it happen and see where you're falling off to make the adjustments so that, like, let's say you do try one of the tips I just gave you and it doesn't work out. Well, now you see it on the calendar and you're like, hey, I keep missing it at this point in the day. So like, let's say you're aiming for 30 grams of protein 3 times a day, and you're only seeing the checkoff for breakfast and dinner, and lunch just isn't getting done. You have now the awareness that, hey, it's not getting done at lunch. What do I need to change? And then try a different technique that I mentioned, try a different tip, and then eventually hit that point where you're able to do it no problem, and you're checking it off. And eventually checking it off on your calendar or your habit tracker becomes so irrelevant, because you're like, I'm doing this anyway. It's just a matter of me checking it off. And it's this version of you that, okay, this is now a normal thing. This is a habit. This is something ingrained. I don't really have to look at this tracker to know I'm getting it done, because I'm so damn consistent with it. But you got to get to that point by intentionally tracking in the first place for at least a few months. All right. Maybe a few weeks to start. Don't drive yourself crazy over it. All right. So that's everything I have to say on protein. I hope that you maybe picked up a tip or two in here that allows you to hit your protein goals and achieve your overall goals in the long term, because this is one of those things that can trip people up, but not you. You took the time to listen to this podcast. You took the time to implement this stuff. So that's the next step. Go implement it. All right. And if you heard all of this and you're like, this sounds awesome, but I've got a lot going on. I don't really know how I'm going to get this done. I've tried this in the past. I just can't make myself do it. That's what coaches are for. All right. So if you need a coach in your corner to help you stay accountable and give you the personalized tips that will most likely work in your favor and get you to that place you want to get to, then click the link down below. Let's set up an intro call. Let's see if you are right for the Fit40 in person, if you're in the Greenville area, or you want to join us on Zoom from wherever you're at in the world, or if you want the online accountability coaching. I do that as well. So you can get a full program, nutrition plan, and you have me chatting with you all week to make sure you stay on track. That's an option as well. All right. But it all starts with that intro call. So go down below, click that link. Let's chat. Let's see what's right for you. And that'll be that. All right. So thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate you making it all the way through. I'll see you next time. But until then, go kick some ass. Bye-bye.